Lokati here. Today we are going to be going over our Slayer Cyclone build for 3.26. This is going to be a Cyclone of Tumult build, utilizing Stampede boots for movement, scaling a ton of area of effects, so we get screen-wide AoE, and a very, very solid damage. It's going to need some support, probably from a single target mercenary, given the new content, so that you can kill bosses faster. Cyclone does not have a tremendous amount of single target. Depending on your budget, you're going to be sitting somewhere between 20 and 150 million DPS on the build. But let's go ahead and take a look at the build. Kind of mid-gearing on the Cyclone build. Rakiata's okay items, nothing fantastic, but a really good kind of middle of the road example on what you can do. This is an 8 mod corrupted full breach beyond evolving shrine map. So we're just going to go find us an evolving shrine before we break breaches. Got one. And this is what the build was made for. A solid map farming build with massive AoE. We realistically would love to do this on the patch because our AoE should be about 60% larger, if not more. But this just deletes everything. All of the stuff and things. Everything that shows up on the screen just dies. Right now we're sitting at maybe 55 mil single target DPS, probably 35 mil generic damage. Unfortunately, everything dies so quickly that we don't really get to see much. But this would be a ridiculous amount of stuff on the screen. Our evolving shrine gave us an AoE chaos explosion here too, so we wouldn't normally have the explosions. That should fall off pretty soon here. Yeah, so here's our damage without explosions, which also just deletes everything on the screen. Mow down. Need to go find another evolving shrine. Looking forward to the breach splinter changes. The only thing you're doing really is you're keeping Blood Rage up and you're smiting every once in a while for your smite. I didn't have a Vol Smite handy, so there is no Vol Smite on this guy, but you would be using Vol Smite normally to do this because you're going to get a much larger buff from Vol Smite. But regular Smite is still reasonably good damage. So definitely a good map farmer. Scales pretty well into the end game and scales pretty well at low budget to mid budget to high budget with a lot of craftable upgrades and a lot of farmable upgrades. So should be fairly good for both SSF and League. Let's go take a look at our POB here though. So this is the POB we're going to be launching with, and I'll make updates to it. This loadout, I guess we can include this one. This is just the actual character we were playing. So I'll leave this in here. Has pre 3.26 test gear. And so this is the POE we're launching with. We're going to have we'll have a low budget, a mid budget, and an in-game build, as well as our pre-test gear in here. The low budget is relatively inexpensive to put together, with a few uniques that help it to shine at a low budget. This is probably all going to be under 1 div, except for Stampede. I don't know at all what the market is going to do on Stampede. It will depend on where the popularity of Cyclone builds are. You can use a regular Stampede or a replica Stampede. It doesn't matter. They're both just looking for the 150% move speed while cycloning. If we don't have access to Stampede, it just means we're going to move slower. We will need to use a Quicksilver Flask to make up for some of that speed loss. And you may want to use regular Cyclone instead of Cyclone of Tumult until you get to the point where you can use Cyclone of Tumult and you have the move speed so it feels comfortable. But you're looking at like 1.6 mil DPS on the low budget. You're looking at 26 mil DPS on the high budget. You're looking at somewhere around 90 to 100 mil DPS on the in-game build for single target. I don't know why our body armor got removed here. Looking at somewhere between 90 and 100 mil DPS on the high budget. And then in between is just in between. If you've got the in-game build set up, but you just don't have a really good sword yet, we can just use any old Rakiatas here. Some of them are better than others, but this is going to put you at 82 million DPS without having an in-game sword. And so you have a few options on how to scale the character and how to get things put together so that you're comfortable in it. Now, as far as our tree goes, this is pretty standard. We're going to come down here and take Bravery and Master the Arena. Master the Arena we're taking for the regeneration and the increased melee strike range. It also opens up more options for our Lethal Pride. There's a lot of Lethal Prides. You'll be able to click Find Timeless Jewel and hit Search, and it will just list Lethal Prides for your character. The top one is the best, and they go down from there. Any of those are good Lethal Prides on the list, so it doesn't matter which one you buy. We're then coming down and we are taking Mana Mastery for reservation efficiency, two-handed mastery, attack mastery for the melee strike range, Golem's Blood and armor evasion mastery here, charge mastery with frenzy charges down here, sword mastery with frenzy charge on hit. If you do not need the frenzy charge on hit because you're going up here in mark mastery or something, then this can become attack range as well. We are an interrogation trinity build, so interrogation, yoke of suffering, and taming are important items, and they kind of all go together. We are taking bleeding mastery with cornered prey for the increased critical strike chance. We're taking herbalism, thick skin, golem's blood, and blood drinkers, as well as revenge of the hunted, because we need as much life as we can get on the tree on the build. We're taking spell suppression with entrench and innervate here. You can take some additional spell suppression here if you do not have good rolls on your gear, and you can tattoo down the tree if you don't have good rolls on the gear. Then we're coming up here and taking another frenzy charge here, another frenzy charge here, and the frenzy charge down here. We're taking inversion here, even though it is nerfed, and we are taking cluster jewels with martial prowess and feed the fury. Right down here, martial prowess and feed the fury. Calamitous is good to stick on the back, but anything can go on the back. We're not going to take any of the nodes on the back of the cluster jewel setup. This is simply to open up the number of jewels we have access to, because jewels are a great part of scaling our damage. We are taking Wind Dancer as well, so that we can make sure that we get to 95% evasion. To get to 95% evasion, you're going to need Wind Dancer, as well as a Watcher's Eye with 8% chance to evade attacks while affected by Grace. And if you do not have the Watcher's Eye, do not take Wind Dancer. Stick with Determination and just run a hybrid of evasion and higher armor. Once you have the Watcher's Eye, you can take Wind Dancer to get up to the 95% evasion. It is very important that you do not take Wind Dancer until you can hit 95% evasion with Wind Dancer, because otherwise you're just going to be increasing the amount of damage you're taking and probably dying more often. Revenge of the Hunted, the 10% chance to suppress spell damage while in full life is irrelevant. We're never at full life because we reserve precision with arrogance, And so that does not matter, but the increased evasion and the max life is still a huge bonus to the character, one of the best nodes on the tree. And then, of course, we are taking Clever Thief with Leech Mastery for instant leech and attack damage. Leech does life and mana, so that we don't have to worry about the fact that we do almost entirely elemental damage. As far as our skills go, Cyclone, we are running Pulverized Trinity, Awaken Elemental Damage with attacks, Infused Channeling, and Awaken Increased Area of Effect. If you needed more damage, you could drop Awaken Increased Area of Effect for Volatility. Infused Channeling is going to be huge for us from a survivability standpoint, however, so we do not want to get rid of that. And Awaken LE Damage with attacks is our Reflect immunity, so we do not want to get rid of that. Trinity is the key part of the build. Pulverize has a little bit of flexibility, but it's just such a tremendous damage and AoE increase that's almost a non-negotiable. And so if you're at a 5 link, you would drop Awakened Increased Area of Effect. On our boots, we're running Flesh and Stone, Enlighten, Summon, Skitterbots, and Grace, Precision with Arrogance, Enduring Cry with Urgent Orders, Blood Rage, Leap Slam, Assassin's Mark, Mark on Hit, and then we are running out whatever defense you want to. Immortal Call, cast when damage taken, is very good. We do want Punishment as our secondary curse ball, Smite, Ball, Haste, and more duration on all these buffs to keep us in a good situation. If you want more AoE, then I would probably give up to cast when damage taken and run Blood and Sand. We're already going to be running Flesh and Stone. We have the mana reservation available. The unreserved mana that we have is primarily for increased uptime on our tinctures. Not Progenesis, Lion's Roar. Increased uptime on our tincture. And if you have a better Enlighten... Well, we've got a level 4 Enlighten here already. I think this is still the best setup here. But you do have the option of swinging Blood and Sand in here if you wanted to get larger AoE on the screen. So that would be a good option for us here. As far as items go, we are running a Tri-LE Sword. I have Elemental Crafting, Tri-LE Crafting video on my YouTube. You can check that out or come and stream and ask. But these are very simple to craft, especially with Recom. We can make even better ones now. Helmet, we just want a Haunted Bassinet with high spell suppression, high armor and evasion, max life resistances, and some int. Unless you have a better source of int, this is going to be your number one way to get that intelligence requirement that you need for Awakened Increased Area of Effect. On our body armor, these are fairly easy to craft. I have not posted a video, but there are videos out there on creating Cyclone armor. So you want to have spell suppression as much as you can get, socketed attacks, crit, and additional curse. These are deterministic, all but the suppression. And so it gets a little squirrely trying to get the suppression in there, but there are ways to craft that. On our gloves, you're just going to fracture off Temple Gloves with Chilled, spam it until you get suppression with attack speed, and then craft on the prefixes. Nothing complex here. Stampede Boots or Replica Stampede Boots, a yoke with at least 10% increased damage taken from each type of element, and then decent resistances. A Taming Ring that is very high elemental damage with hits and ailments, and then catalyzed for that. An Amethyst Ring, fracturing off the elemental damage with attack skills, or fracturing off lightning damage or fire damage flat. And then using an Essence to get the 25% global crit multi, and then crafting on the prefixes. Hopefully you get good open suffix or good suffixes on it with the crit multi. And then a Stygian Vice. This is a Crusader Orb Stygian Vice for crit against shocked enemies. Probably not necessary. It's just the one that we're crafting in here. You can get away with just elemental damage with attack skills, chaos resistance, strength life, and some sort of hybrid chaos res. And then we do want a bunch of jewels, good jewels. So we got Murderous Eye jewels with good stats. You need 2 jewels with 50% chance to avoid being shocked because we are running Storm Shroud. So you need 2 of these with 50% chance to avoid being shocked. If you can fracture that off, you can craft good ones for this. We do have the Watcher's Eye we talked about. We do have the Feed the Fury, Martial Prowess, Calamitous Cluster jewels, and then just generic high DPS jewels for your other slots. Crit multi is good. Two-handed crit multi is good. And then increased life is always good. And then we talked about your lethal pride. For flasks, we are using a silver flask, a diamond flask, a lion's roar, and a progenesis in the end game, and then a tincture with elemental penetration on it. So that's how we're going to get our items set up. Everything is fairly straightforward. We'll be updating this build guide as we go, but I don't see a whole lot of general changes to it. And then once we get some more data on the new axe, we'll decide if that is better than a Tri-Ele sword. I have a feeling there's no chance that it scales better than the amount of damage that you can pull out of one of these two-handed swords, but we shall see. If you have any questions over anything, drop a comment down below or come by Twitch and ask. I'm happy to help anytime. And we'll be doing a lot of theory crafting this season, a lot of making new builds. So I do invite people to come in the channel and bounce ideas off and answer questions. A lot of times I learn stuff when I try to find answers to questions that people have. Thank you very much for watching. Peace.